All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Lee Kiber. I'm the Digital Services Librarian for Meridian Library District. And today we are going to talk about using reference solutions specifically for starting a business. So just as you're starting to get up and running, we're going to look at a couple different searches we can do and different ways to use the database to start to learn about maybe the viability of the business, good locations, and maybe some areas to start marketing and finding out who your customers might be. Um, so the database we're looking at is called Reference Solutions. You may be more familiar with the name Reference USA. That is its previous name. It just went through a rebranding this last year or so. So you may hear me slip up and say Reference USA, but it's all the same thing. It's now Reference Solutions. So if you've used it before, it's going to look very familiar. If you've ever taken a look, it all looks the same. It's all the same information, just a little bit different on the branding. So today we're going to look at what Reference Solutions is, if you've never used it before, what it can do for you, how to access the database, a few strategies for successful research in general, and then an overview of some searches we can do. And I'll also provide a little more information on some more resources for you. Okay, so what is Reference Solutions? It is a very large database of businesses and people. There are business specifics, like the type of business, how much a particular business makes in sales, geographic area, employee and number of employees, and more information. And then individuals, it's basically consumer information. So you can see interests, income levels, locations, kind of how people are grouped in different areas to see where you might target some marketing. This information comes from many different sources. Many of them are public information like tax records, census data, other government records like assessment information, and then some is proprietary to Reference Solutions. They have a lot of researchers employed who are constantly adding more data to the system. And then basically their services that they bring this all together in one place and make it searchable for us. So it's a little bit easier to access and compare these large bits of data. So to access Reference Solutions, you can get to it through our website. It is accessible if you come to any of our locations, you'll just get right in. You won't have to enter your library card number or anything. It will just authenticate by being on one of our campus sites, any of our library locations. And that's whether you're on your own laptop or using one of our computer stations. From home, you can access it by just entering your Meridian Library District card. And then they also recently have launched an app. So it's enter your MLD library card number to load up that app on your phone or tablet if you prefer a quick search that way. It's a little bit kind of simpler of an interface. From our website, if across the top, there's in our menu, the research tab. If you select that, it'll take you to our research tools page. And from there, you can filter on business databases to kind of shrink your list, but it's also all of our databases are in there alphabetically. So you can just scroll right down to access that. You will see as you do your research sometimes that there are individual subscriptions available. There are some additional features there, but the data that you're accessing is all the same through the public library access point. So as I said, there's quite a bit of different types of information. It's kind of separated into databases within a database, I guess. Today, we're going to look at the US businesses database and also the US consumers and lifestyles. Our library subscribes to 6 different databases. There's also some job search capabilities, looking at historical businesses, so looking back a little further if you wanted to see how things have changed over a wider span of time. And then new businesses and new homeowners and new movers. So that's something here in Meridian we know we have a lot of, so that might be a useful one to take a look at as well. So before we jump in, I want to talk a little bit about just kind of being prepared for our search. So just thinking a little bit ahead of time can go a long way, because some of these databases, there's just a lot of information in reference solutions, and it can be a little bit overwhelming if you don't have kind of an idea in mind of what you'd like to do. And we want your searches to be successful. And if you come spend time at the library, we want that time to be spent well. Of course, we have staff who can help out as well, but it will, if you can kind of come prepared with some information, that'll help you to be a little more successful. So I'd suggest thinking about things you already know. So what market research have you already done? What trends have you seen in your industry? What trends have you seen in the area? We know Meridian's growing a lot, of course, but looking at, where and how it's changing, looking at some demographics, that kind of information beforehand. And then just think a little bit about what you're wanting to learn, or what your outcome, your intended outcome of your search session is. So are you looking to get a list of similar businesses and information about them to see who your competitors might be? Are you looking for consumer demographics? Are you looking for some new residents, maybe for some targeted advertising, or new businesses that are getting established in your area? And of course, that's all to try and answer these bigger questions that you have as you start to go down the path of starting your own business, ensuring to whatever extent you can that there is a good market for your product or service, and knowing who your competitors are so you can identify what you offer that's unique or a better value, and start to plan as part of your business plan and marketing plan. So with that in mind, we're going to jump in and do some sample searching. And just as a starting point, we're going to say that we are going to start a landscaping business here in Idaho. This, of course, could mean a lot of things. It could be landscape to design. It could be, mowing and trimming services. So we're going to just jump in with this kind of broad idea of landscaping and see kind of where that could take us. So to start, we are going to use the US businesses database. Right now, they keep updating this, but it is 62 million businesses included, including 16 million verified, which means that they make phone calls and ensure that the addresses and that information is correct. So this is always being updated and added to. So I think the last time I did this presentation, it was something like 58 million businesses. So even once you've kind of started your business and done some initial research, I think it never hurts to revisit this and even revisit some of the same searches that you've done to see if there might be some new information a little bit later on as you're kind of going down the path. So each database that you go in, one nice thing about reference solutions is that with each of these separate databases, the format is basically the same. So once you get familiar with using one, it's really easy to pop in and out of the different databases and know how to kind of navigate through them. So for our searches today, we're going to use the advanced search tab, and that gives us an opportunity to add some various filters and do kind of a wide net search. If you wanted to look at a particular business, you could do just their quick search, or if you wanted to just look at city, state, you could just put in some basic information, but we're gonna go ahead and click over to that advanced search tab and take a look at what we'll see here. So I went ahead and checked a few boxes. So on the left-hand side, you'll see all the options for filtering. So we can filter by company name if we wanted to get really specific, or executives, but generally we'll probably be looking at searching by business types, geographic area, maybe business size, or maybe some financial data, but probably mostly in the business type and geography. So I went ahead and selected that I am going to search by keyword and city state. So each time you check one of these boxes along the left, it will pull that filter into that center record area. So when I checked on keyword, and I searched on landscaping, just as a general starting point. It then brought in a lot of results that I could pick from that are their terms for the various services involved. So I went ahead and clicked on a few of those to select them. And then also I've selected Meridian, Idaho as my search term. So they use, you'll see those acronyms there, SIC and NAICS, and that's the North American Industry Classification System and the Standard Industrial Classification. So these are just set terms so that there's a consistent language for talking about these industry types. So with my selections, I've ended up with 38 business records. And I think maybe that's a little bit small for where I want to start my original search. So I'm going to try something else. And instead of doing a keyword search, I'm just going to go into those major industry groups and then kind of let them guide me to what I would like to choose. So under agricultural services, I have selected both landscape counseling and planning and lawn and garden services. Once I've made those selections, on the right-hand side, if you click on the Update Count button, that'll tell you how many records you're going to end up with before you go and review those results. So that'll let you know before you get too far kind of how many records are going to be included, and you can then play around with those filters and selections to get to a record count that makes more sense for you. Once you get into looking at consumer records and things like that, sometimes those record counts are going to be very high. So it just depends how specific you want to get or how broad of a list you'd like to take a look at. So once we click on that view results, we get our list of business names. And at the top left, we see this was the 55 results it told us we were going to get. Across the top, there are some options that are going to be pretty similar across databases. We'll take a look at the summary and heat map options here in a little bit. And then with each one, you can download, print, or save your search, and you can make those selections by checking the boxes on the left or clicking on the little open box at the top to select that whole page. So this search is automatically sorted by a company name alphabetically. You can also click on the columns across the top to sort differently, or use the little drop-down arrow to add additional column headers. So then we're going to go ahead and take a look at a sample business record. So editing out the business name, I've just chosen a couple of the sections of that business record. So as you can see, the one that I chose has its industry type described as pest control, extermination, landscaping, And there's little check boxes that'll tell you what their primary services are. So if you're thinking of opening a landscaping business, you can take a look at some other local businesses, see what services they're mostly focused on, and see where you might provide a niche or could provide some additional services. You can also look at their sales volume per year. It looks like perhaps this business didn't get started till 2017, 2018, and they've had a pretty consistent sales volume since then, at least for this location. And then you can also take a look at their business expenditures. So if you're starting to work on your business plan and trying to think about what expenses you can expect to incur as part of your ongoing operations, you can take a look and kind of compare, these are estimated annual expenses, but it might give you an idea if you're like, I have no idea how much I'm gonna spend on, you know, labor or accounting fees, things of that nature. You could compare across different businesses that are in the same industry as you and see where you might anticipate to spend more as part of your business costs. And this is a view, I mentioned that summary option from our menu options across the top of our results page. So here is a summary view. So one option of a summary is that you could take a look at the sales range of the locations. So if you have a sense of about what size of income your business is going to be, you could take a look at comparable businesses. You could also, just take a look at some of the top earners in your field and, do some comparables and see why it is that their sales volume is great and what they might be doing well or what services there might be high demand for. Okay, so that gives us an idea of the kinds of things that we can find when we're looking at businesses in the US Businesses database. And now we're going to skip over to the US Consumers and Lifestyles database. And this is our database on individuals and spending habits, potential marketing areas, things of that nature. So again, we're going to pop over to that advanced search tab, and it looks hopefully fairly familiar from what we just looked at in US businesses. The options on the left-hand side are of course going to be quite different because we're talking about individual people versus businesses. So, and we're looking more at consumer spending, lifestyle, where people live, the kind of homes that they're in, and that kind of information. So again, you just check those boxes along the left, and each one you choose will be pulled into that center viewpoint. And you can see, before we even start adding anything, we've got, several million records, over 300 million records to start with. So we'll start narrowing that. So just kind of as a starting point, I chose Meridian again. I also chose estimated home value and estimated home income, thinking that if we take a look at home value, we might think, improving the landscaping is one way that a home value could be improved, or something that folks might want to look at. So you might look at, industry trends on home values and incomes and how those different segments of demographics might relate to spending on landscaping and services. And then I've also checked homeowners because we are more likely that the owner of the home is going to be the one making these investments or paying for these services rather than the renter, but depending on what services, that might not be the case for your business. And then we've done updated our record count. And so that gave us about 17,000 records. So that's quite a number of households, individuals that we could take a look at. It does also give us an email account. So there are email addresses for some of these individuals, but to access that information, that is a paid service. So that's not included through public library access. Um, and then when I checked that homeowner aspect, that's in the consumer snapshot section. And there is private data in that section. So because of that, what it does is instead of showing that as individual records, it's going to take you to a summary. So it's going to tally that demographic information for you and just give you, you can choose those variables yourself and how it groups that data. So you could look at that several different ways using the summary toolbox. I'm going to go ahead and skip that for now so we can see the full results list. So again, really similar to the businesses, it's going to give us a list of people, basically kind of a phone book view, if you will, for this initial search results. And you'll see that phone numbers in many cases are included. So you do need to note their little reminder there that just because the phone numbers are displayed does not mean that you can call those individuals. You do have to be responsible yourself for knowing if for researching do not call lists and making sure you do not call the individuals who are on those lists. So then we'll take a look here. We'll look at a heat map, and then we'll also look at an individual record and compare that to what we saw with the businesses. So here are some excerpts from an individual's record. It does include their name. I just haven't, I've edited that out for demonstration purposes, but it does give, you know, where they live, how long they've been in their home. So that can be kind of an indicator maybe of home services and desire for that. You can take a look at neighborhood information. So we're looking at things like household incomes, home values, and kind of some census information there as well. And then it also shows lifestyle interests. So this individual, it does show is interested in home decorating and furnishing as well as gardening. So, you know, those might be some lifestyle interests that would be a good match for marketing to for landscaping services. And then the heat map option will show you the data, kind of a visual of the data. So right now I have chosen to look at the data on home value. So as you can see, it'll kind of show you this heat map spread on lower home value to greater home value. So if you're looking for a certain range of home value as a good marketing segment, this could give you a sense maybe of what areas of Meridian to focus on so that you're not spending so much. You know, if you're doing mailers or something, those can be very expensive to print and mail with the postage costs. So you might take a look at doing some more targeted advertising, and this could be one way that you could start to determine that. It could also tell you, you know, if you're looking for your business to have a particular, like a physical location, particularly something more like, you know, maybe a retail shop or any kind of walk-in traffic, the heat map could be a good way to start looking at maybe where there might be a good location to think about. So if you want to access these records again, a couple of strategies that you can use are, one, you can create a personal account in Reference Solutions. So that does not mean that you have to buy a subscription. They do allow personal accounts through our public library access point. You just need to set it up with your email and that kind of thing. And then once you have that set up, you can save searches. So in that menu across the top, there are options to save searches. And then that way you don't have to get back to that same starting point every time. You can kind of retweak search and research. It's called research for a reason, right? We search and then we search again and we play with those filters until we get the information that we need. And that's going to change over time for your business too. So that's pretty handy to be able to just pop back in and look at those saved searches, especially if you're short on time. And then, of course, you can download the images, the records, whether it's for business or for the individual consumer data. They do allow up to 250 records at a time for either printing or downloading. So once you hit that cap, you do need to pay to access more all at one time. So if you're kind of finding that you're doing a lot of researching, they have contact information on there where you can get a quote for getting access to that information, just like the email addresses as well, if that's the kind of information that you need for your business. So as I said, today we went through the US businesses database as well as the US consumers and lifestyles segment of reference solutions. The US new businesses, as I mentioned, might be a great one to look at to see if someone else is also starting a new business in your area and who your new competitors may be. And then also that US new movers and homeowners, especially, for our example as a landscaping business, that might be a good resource for doing some targeted marketing to get up and running. If someone's new to their home, they're maybe going to want to make their landscape their own. So those would be good ones to jump into as well, at least for our example here. And of course, there are other options once you jump into this. Like I said, it's so much information. There's a lot of different directions to go. So if you'd like some additional help and pointers, of course, you can always search YouTube. There are many libraries who have created presentations like this one on specific searches. Data Axle also has presentations up in YouTube that you can find. When you're in reference solutions, there's a nice dark bar across the top that gives you a spot to click on webinars and learning center information. Additionally, we do appointments with our staff to help guide you through. So if there's a specific search or specific information you're really hoping to garner out of reference solutions or any of our other databases, if you go to mld.org/unbound-appointment, or just navigate there through the Unbound Services pages, you can fill out a form and request some one-on-one help. And additionally, we do have some other resources gathered outside of just reference solutions. This, of course, won't be the only place you'll consult and get information from as you're starting your business. So we do have some more information there about local organizations, other databases that might be of use, and other kind of news resources as well. So I would encourage you to check those out from our website and get in touch with us if you have any questions. Again, here's my contact information. I, as digital services librarian, oversee kind of help with all of our databases, as well as troubleshooting ebooks and keeping our website up to date. So if you have any questions for me, please feel free to email me at jkeebert@mld.org, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you for joining us for this presentation. We hope that you will check out reference solutions. And I, of course, always suggest that there's no harm in just getting in there and playing around to start with. There's no harm in experimenting and just clicking on some different choices and putting in some different search terms and see what you can learn. So please don't be afraid to just jump in and play around with any of our databases. There's no harm that can come from that. You might actually stumble upon something really interesting that you might not have found with a specified search. And please take a look at some of our other upcoming um, presentations on our databases and business resources.